Oh, hi, Fox. Thank you so much for joining us. If we could start by you introducing yourself, that would be wonderful.
My name is Fox Humphrey. I am the owner of Fox Dancer Studios. I am originally from Vermont. I moved here about 4 years ago. Um, I I ended up around 11 to 14 in a severely abusive situation, and it set off schizophrenia, bipolar, anxiety, depression, PTSD, and it all this kind of set in around 12, 13. And I it's hard to say how things changed exactly. When I was young, I was very creative. I was always very creative, and I would come up with these really like out there stories, but like fantasy stories and things like that. But after the thing started, I started getting delusions of fantasy. I started believing that I was a werecat warrior queen from another realm, and that I had powers, and that I could psychically talk to animals and control the weather with my feelings. I routinely talked to gods and ghosts and stuff. And um these bouts, there would be periods where I would get clarity and be like, this isn't real. You know that this is all in your head. And um at a young age, sorry, at a young age, my father had made a comment to me that if you talk about this stuff to a doctor, they're going to lock you up and never let you out. My father had been forcefully institutionalized in his early 20s, and this was back when medicine wasn't so ethical. And he had some pretty traumatizing experiences. He wasn't meaning to, but that statement, I got this idea in my head that I had to keep it all quiet. The fact I was hearing voices, the fact I wasn't registering it as fantasy. Oh, this could be a problem. But I knew that at the same time, if I talked about it, I had that thought, I'm going to get locked up. And I had specific trauma with being caged or restrained. So in later years, when I ended up in a psychiatric unit, I was 15, it was for attempted suicide. I ended up um it they I didn't I had tried to talk to them about what had happened, and I was told it was the worst abuse case they had heard in over a decade. They were telling me I shouldn't be alive, that I um there that I had a lot, what was wrong with me was a direct result from that, and it's not something to be ashamed of, it's not something to be upset about. I still did not feel comfortable enough, and I didn't tell them about it, but I did finally start opening up to therapy for the abuse. I started getting like proper therapy for that, and it helped for a while. Sometimes they would put me on an antipsychotic. This was more towards my 20s, and I would be kind of treated for a little while, and I'd be stable and things would be going well. But one thing or another would happen. The med would end up not working out, and it would be switched, and then suddenly I'm schizophrenic again, and I'm back down the rabbit hole. Um, I did not start being honest with a doctor about the delusions until I was 28. In all those years, I had been for years hallucinating demons that were telling me all the reasons I should kill myself, why I was a mistake, how everyone would be better off without me. And I was having flashbacks daily. Um, Panic attack wise, I average between 20 to 30 a day if I'm not treated for anxiety. Um, but years and years of therapy and AA, well, oh God, I'm forgetting things. Um, Going down that journey with schizophrenia, things just progressively in my life became worse and worse. early on, I got into addiction. I couldn't cope with it. And if I drank enough, it shut the voices up. So it became this thing where I'd be off the wall and I'd drink and drink and drink until I was blackout drunk. At my usual, I was averaging 2 fists of whiskey a day. At my worst, I was averaging a gallon in a day and a half. Um, around 21, I got into my first rehab, and I was diagnosed with bipolar. And they put me on lithium, and for the first time since I was like 10 or 11, I went 3 days without thinking about killing myself. I thought that was normal. I thought everybody felt like that. And so I had never bothered to say to anybody, oh yeah, I think about that daily. Like it I felt better. And but again, over the years the schizophrenia wasn't always getting treated. So things would get better, get worse, get better, and that worse kept getting deeper and deeper. I got arrested several times. I picked up a couple DUIs. At one point they put me on Prozac. I had a really severe reaction. I totaled my car, broke up with my long-term boyfriend, and threw all his stuff in the front yard. Overdosed on alcohol. I was found at a .45 12 hours after my last drink. I was ODing, and on the way back to the hospital, I had a mini stroke. I had a heart attack. Um, it was 3 days in the ICU. Um, it, this cycle of not getting meds figured out, not getting diagnosed, continued, like I said, till 28, 29. And I started, one of my doctors had suggested, like, you might be schizophrenic. I knew I had psychosis, but I didn't think it was schizophrenia. The psychosis was diagnosed at 27. But right as they were about to start getting me on treatment for it, my housing fell through. This was about my rock bottom. Um, 2019, right 6 months before this point, I had a successful suicide attempt. I stopped my heart, I stopped my breathing, I had to be resuscitated by my roommate. 6 months later, I had been assaulted twice in that time by two different men, and then tried to starve and drink myself to death. I went 2 months without eating. I dropped from 190 pounds down to 95. I'm 5'10". Um, and at that point, at the end of that 2 months, I knew I was dying. And something in me was like, I don't want to die like this. I don't want to give up. I had lost custody of my daughter at this point. I was getting evicted. I got blacklisted in every apartment complex in the state. I had a cop that was headhunting me. I was having housing fall through after housing fall through, and all this time hadn't managed to keep a job more than 6 months. And all this was untreated schizophrenia. All this. And at 28, I moved here. I met Dr. Fan, and he started getting me with different medications and different treatments that when I had the weird reactions that I do, he would listen to me and find a better, more suitable. All of a sudden, and oh, sorry, I'm skipping things. At that rock bottom, I had met this man named Marquez. Marquez was the only person talking to me at this point. After the successful suicide attempt, I traumatized my mother. I absolutely traumatized her. And we're good now. We speak daily or weekly at least weekly, several times a week. But she said the only reason it wasn't the worst day of her life is because I survived. But I had met Marquez, and as my housing fell through when I was getting evicted, he let me temporarily move in with him. And he started, at this point, my will had been broken. I was willing it I had to hit the absolute bottom to get to a point where I was willing to do whatever it took to fix my stuff, to fix my issues and my life. And he presented a different way of getting sober to me, a different way of thinking, of coping with things, how to change my thinking processes to more positively and like on the bright side, how to think the drink out, how to sit there and say, okay, yeah, you want to get drunk? What's going to happen if you get drunk? As somebody used to say in AA, I get drunk, I break out in handcuffs. It's an allergic reaction. um, but they, I I managed to stay sober. It took intense work across weeks of every single day, multiple times a day, going, no, that thought process is not correct. Or this is not healthy. That's a toxic behavior. What is the correct behavior? Going through the thoughts and fixing them. And after weeks of this, it became habit. And as I was able to change the behaviors bit by bit and the thinking processes and the coping skills, I used things I had learned in every detox, hospital, IOP, AA meeting, everything I had been to. And it 6 months turned into 2 years, turned into 4 years. I had a 2 hour relapse August 2022. But the way, I guess, the more relatable, like the way that's closest to the way I got sober is called secular AA. Instead of putting everything to your higher power, you're putting the responsibility more on your own self. Um this um Around that point, I he had started calling out certain delusions of mine. And it was at the point I was watching TV. I was 6 months living with him. And I had thought I got a message from the gods on the television. And I stopped and was like, wait a second. Classic schizophrenic right there. And I had a conversation with my doctor about, is it possible I'm schizophrenic and not just psychosis? And she said, yeah, maybe. But that was when I got the diagnosis. I would not have hit the realization that these things were psychotic, that it was schizophrenic, if it hadn't been for him. Um, all those years, people would feed into my delusions. People would agree with things or have similar. I would run into people who were schizophrenic and they would confirm details of my delusions. And it would be right off, oh, it is real. It's not all in my head. There are other people who believe it. And it'd be right down the rabbit hole. The biggest thing I can say to anybody, if your friend is having delusions, if your family member is having delusions, tell them. Do not just go along the sidelines, because it is a miserable, terrifying experience living with schizophrenia that is untreated. My life was a living hell because I did not get diagnosed. I did not get treatment. I could have saved myself so much suffering. And like, sorry, I'm good. Next, I'm so sorry. You see how it all ties into each other, though.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's all connected. You want to look at a lot of addiction. It's untreated mental illness or trauma. Mine was both. So, I started crafting at around 5, 3 to 5. I had started drawing, but at 6 years old, there was this girl in my class who could draw really good dogs. And I really, really wanted to draw good dogs too. So she had told me she practiced and practiced. So I practiced and practiced and found that I really enjoyed it. And over the years, like drawing, mom started me sewing at 5. I started making crafts like with Girl Scouts and stuff around 6 and 7. Around 8, I got into making clothes for my dolls. By 9, my mom had me sewing like stuff for around the house. Like she was buying me my own cloth. Originally, she started me on fabric softener sheets and rags, but um, it my growing up, my family would buy me art supplies. I'd always be drawing or making things, crafting out of natural supplies. My dad got me into carpentry around 8. I started wood carving around 9 and 10. Um, Around 10, 11, when the abuse started, it became a coping skill. I would have horrific night terrors. And one of the things that would help is I would stay up till 3 a.m. until I was absolutely exhausted. And I would finally crash and then wake up at 6, 7 a.m. for school. But I would be so tired, I wouldn't dream. And what would distract me, what I could just sink myself into and get away from the thoughts and all the negative stuff and horrible things going on, was I would make jewelry. I had a whole blanket like this big spread out with beads all over it, and I just stay up all night making jewelry. Um, I did not do that cheap shit. I was doing like glass, stone, bone, wood, and semi-precious stones. I would go to thrift stores and find real gold and real stones, because thrift stores don't bother to check those things. So you can get an opal for $2.95. um but I would take them apart and like use parts of it to make new jewelry. I like the idea of reuse, recycle, and all that. I'm very much so the hippie. Like, nature is nature was a big part of my recovery. But I also started making figurines out of melting crystal plastic beads together and making like animal figures. I was taking stones and making mosaics on bark pieces, carving, heating up and carving wax and making wax roses with like 20, 30 individual petals on them. Um, and then around 12, my wood shop teacher, Mr. Batten, introduced me to wood burning. So back then, I was doing very basic things. But sorry about that. Um, Wood burning has become, I am now 31. I have been doing it for, let me think, 19 years. So these are some of the um, steampunk styled um, that I've done. This is a little more PG-17, but yeah, fairy and a toad smoking. The steampunk stuff I do because I like the style. I've always, since about 12, I have been a goth punk emo. Well, a few years was emo, I'll admit. Cringe, but I've always been alternative styled. Um, these are more the pieces that have deeper meaning. This is called reincarnation, rebirth. The It's the whole idea that we're all taking time till the next lifetime. I have This was the idea that keep growing, let your heart be free, let your heart continue to take in and grow and love. Like, that's just a steampunk heart because steampunk's cool. But steampunk owl, another steampunk owl. I am part of this journey with shamanic paganism. I can actually put this bit in now for you, but I am a 16th native. I am Abenaki and Pequot. My great grandmother was full blooded, but I choose to honor those ancestors as well as the Celts with the pagan. And um, I started when I got sober this time around. I got my native name at 22 from an Abenaki shaman that I had been talking to for a bit, and fox dancer. So when I was 27, 28, and I got sober this time around, I had so much trauma and so much bad things, all the abusive relationships, the drinking, everything was under my name, Nicole. Now, I love that my parents named me after Victory, Victory of the People, Nicole. Nicole is a strong name, but I would not have been able to move forward with my life if I had not let go of that. And letting go of that name was allowing me to walk away from all of that and start over. And so Fox Dancer became, with my business, it's Fox Dancer Studios. Um, the goddess I worship is the Celtic war goddess, the Morrigan, but I also worship Gaia. Gaia is always been a strong point to me. I've always had a strong affinity to nature and animals. So, and this is the more Nordic pagan ties. This is a Viking warrior. No, that's Odin. I'm sorry. This is Odin. That Nordic. The runes actually spell out Odin. Um, this is a piece I call Awakening, about us finding our inner warrior, our inner beast. How women all throughout have that inner cry coming out of saying, "No, we will not take this." Um, this is again kind of rebirth, recycle, or rebirth kind of thing. I'm a little obsessed with reincarnation and the life cycle, the alternates of life versus death, and how people view death. It's one of the reasons I like skulls and kind of the gothic side of things. Is I think we as a society have too negative a view of death. It's a part of the cycle. It's part of life. Losing my father was horrible, but you know, at the same time, it's a cycle we're all going to go through. We're all going to lose our parents someday, and someday our kids will lose us. We get given back to the earth, and we are from our bones and our ashes come new things. The life cycle continues. Again, that life cycle. This is the ticking time of death looming over you. um, this is the one. This is the Morrigan. She has always been a favorite. So at that, like I said, wood burning. The drawings I've been doing lately are there. A week before I saw you guys, I left my drawing notebook at a meeting, and somebody stole it. But that's one of my more recent drawings. This was the basis for the other one. Jawbone drawing for my class, but I wish I had my intro to human form stuff. Oh, this like. That's a tattoo concept design. I currently am studying tattoo design and video game design. I do, like I said, natural crafts, found things crafts. This is one of my shell and glass pieces. But yeah, I really like working in horror. I'll be honest, I really do. This is Anne. As you can see, she's a zombie. She got exposed brains and all that. Not exactly what you call your average thing, and I have had no luck selling it. But I wish I had one of my horror bears. This is a creepy crew. Patchwork, little horror doll, but I actually made this cloth. This is all a bunch of scraps sewn together and then made into a doll. And I put fabric paint on the lines of it. This was my other horror doll, um, Kiko, but I liked the whole button eye thing. The stuff, I still do jewelry. I actually specialize in Native American jewelry. I make bone bead tiered chokers. Um, I I for a while I have some of this still. I have birch bark that I was doing ink paintings on with cow bone frames, cow bone art. I'm still doing some bone art, dream catchers, wind chimes, lighting fixtures. Dad got me into carpentry at, God, yeah, like I said, eight or nine. Um, I've built a couple benches. I've built some shelves before. Recently, I've gotten into blacksmithing. I made a couple knives. I was dabbling in blacksmithing at 14 to 16 until my father caught me making a sword. And he got really pissed and was like, "You're not making weapons in this house." And bent it over and turned it into a poker. I cried. I've messed around with a bit of glass, working with glass. I've done pottery. I've done quite a bit of pottery. Sewing, actually, this bag, I made the cloth. The bag is completely my work. It's got lining, like the edging is actually really nice. I'm proud of this. Yeah. I put work into this. I actually my most extensive pieces I have ever done are a 36-hour quilt, a 18-hour coffee table, and a 23-hour coffee table. The piece I want to bring in to work on in front of you guys is the third largest piece I have ever done. It has taken me in total 5 hours of designing and drawing, 5 hours of drawing, like a couple hours of designing, and it's probably going to approximately take 5 hours to 6 hours of wood burning. So with all that spiel out of the way, what questions do you ladies have? So the thing was, in early high school, I had wanted to go into some kind of art degree. But my dad kept being like, you can't make a living as an artist. It depends on the will of the people. It's not a stable income. If you want to be in art, find a way to express it in a way that's going to support you and a family. And so originally, I went to Norwich University as a film major. I had gone to the Randolph Technical Career Center for graphic design and multimedia and communications. I studied film and media in one, and obviously graphic design in the other, which tied into all my drawing I had been doing and messing around on Photoshop. Um, I had to drop out my first year in college due to my dad dying, and I ended up going back down the rabbit hole with drinking and issues. Um, it Around when I moved here, not a couple years after I lived here, and now at 30 years old, I found out about Mass Reconnect. And this is after a decade of trying all these jobs that just didn't work. I've worked security. I have worked for state parks. I did construction for a couple years. I've done retail for too many years. I have restaurant work, anything you can think of in the restaurant except the actual cook. And none of them, I could not do. I would do well in the first 3 months. Things would be great. I was considered an excellent worker. And then the exhaustion would set in and the stress would set in, and that would set off another schizophrenic episode, and I'd lose the job. Now, as somebody who is accepting the fact I have a disability, and I finally listened to everyone in my life and applied for disability, we are getting to a point after 15 friggin' years of this. We are getting to the point we are figuring out the correct meds. I am hoping with, um, I want to be in the art field, and I wanted to work in a field. Mass Reconnect gave me this possibility, but I wanted to work in a field that would allow me the most creative freedom and the most creative, like, I don't want to be drawing the same boring things every day. I don't want to be working in an office where I'm designing square advertisements. Like, no, I want to be designing things with meaning. And so I found out about video game design and was like, this is going to be a career that's going to be going into the future. Gaming is going to exist for a long time. Yeah, but God, gaming in the sense of games has existed for centuries, millennia. Um, I am hoping in the next 2 years until I graduate, right now, through schizophrenic episodes, through everything, I am still managing to stay out of mental hospitals. I've not been in legal trouble. I'm staying sober. So, with the added thing of getting the meds figured out and getting the appropriate therapy, in 2 to 3 years, I'm hoping I can get a job in Boston at one of the major gaming companies that have places over there. Oops. Um, and work part time for the company. I'm hoping my art is good enough quality that I'll be taken, that they'll work with the disability. If that does not work out, or just as a side gig, I am studying tattooing currently. I've always had a passion for tattoos and piercings. It drives my parents nuts. It drove my father nuts, and it's driving my stepfather nuts now. um, I I have, let me think, 11 piercings, 15 tattoos, and I am not done. My body is a canvas, and I plan to be the work of many artists put together. All the tattoos I have are my design. I just didn't do the actual inking, but I'm in a field that allows me, where my form of expression, my hair and my piercings and all the goth aesthetic, that is acceptable. That is considered desirable in that field. That's a sign of a creative individual. And same with tattooing. I would be acceptable as I am. I don't have it today. I will the next time we do an interview with the other piece. But I have a tail, and I am very happy with that tail. It is both a form of expression and a tie to my totem animal. But I very much so think this is going to be a successful gambit. And this is the nice part. $75,000 is where the pay rate starts. So I'll be earning more than I ever have in my life. I think the most I earned in a year was 13,000. um no, so like I don't know if I'll ever be able to work full time. I don't know if that's ever going to be in my books. But, tattooing is also very lucrative, and the idea that I can be in something I'm so passionate about, it's expression, it's creativity, it's the idea that if I'm upset, if I'm in a bad place, I can just throw myself into a project and put everything aside, and it's just me and the expression. And it's like everything else goes away. Throw on some good tunes, smoke a little ganja. It works. It works, and I hope to God, like, my greatest fears are losing the ability to use my hands or going blind. Blinder than I already am. But it's, may the gods forbid I ever lose the ability to do art. I'm polyamorous. I have three partners. The three partners I have, one has been with me for 6 months, but the other two have been long term. Um, Jamie, my fiance, I have been with, not been with, but we were best friends for 17 years. He was my childhood first boyfriend, and when that didn't work out, um, he and his family have just we stayed friends, and like he lived a quarter mile down the house. My parents have always been good supports, but his family was that second family. They still are. That never went away over the years. My mother and my father did not always understand me, but he did everything in his best understanding, and including educating himself on my disorders and my issues. um they supported me the best they could. They when I came out and started dyeing my hair blue, like my mom bought me blue hair dye for prom. I came out as LGBTQ, and my mother was like, go figure. Kind of like I knew it. My dad's only thing was making sure I understood that being, you know, it meant that I was sexually attracted as well. Like he was just trying to get it through that, like, are you sure you know what you're saying you are? But in the end, he had no problem with it. Um, when I came out as gender fluid, my mom's response was, "Oh, honey, I knew years ago." Um, my parents have always supported me, and Charlie, my stepfather, my mom married him after my couple years after my father passed away. Um, but he's been a support to me. He's been a solid person in my life. I mean, he was there for the birth of my first child. He was in the delivery room with me with my mom. Um, there's Marquez he went from my sponsor to my boyfriend. I promise he wasn't 13 stepping, but he has been a massive support to me, and I don't think I would have made it this far without them. Dr. Fan has also been a very solid, like, big part of my recovery, because for the first time I haven't had to argue every step of my damn treatment. I do not react to things in the normal way. I am that one in a million. My father was the same exact way. Like, perfect example, Thorazine. I get put on Thorazine, I get up swinging. Dad was the same way. He tried to knock out an EMT. But um, he listens. He listens, and he worked with me, and I'm getting good long periods of stability. It's just something goes wrong with the med eventually. Um, Currently, I am the happiest, healthiest, most clear headed, and longest lasting sobriety I have had since childhood.
Wow.
And the medical care here has been much better. The doctors, I've had to go through a few counselors, but I've currently got a very solid one. Um, and yeah, the I live with one of Jamie's family members, so those are the major supports for me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for bringing us through that such nuanced journey. We are then wondering, what do you wish the general public knew about living with schizophrenia?
It's not all that scary media stuff. Most of us do not get urges to, like, go stabby stabby on people. Sorry, stabby stabby on people. We're not, it's not like the media portrays it. Now, is it pleasant or easy to live with, or are you always the easiest person to be around? No. My partners, my supports have had years of outbursts and erratic responses to things that are not rational. Delusions, paranoid thinking, but um, we're not, get your family members help, get your friends help, say something. Do not, in existence is infinitesimally better on getting treated. And I know it's not common for, like, schizophrenics or bipolars to take their meds the way they're supposed to be taken. But yeah, there's side effects. It's gonna suck. Treatment's gonna suck. But there are a lot of light sides to it, and the benefits outweigh the bad. People should not be afraid of us. People should not want to be friends with us, because honestly, we're a lot of us are really creative, kind individuals. I've met a lot of schizophrenics who are artists. Um, don't 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 shut us out. Don't give up on us, because it gets better. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. We have one last question for you. You This has been great. You have been so open with us, and we can't thank you enough for that. But to close this off, what advice would you give to someone first receiving a diagnosis?
It's not the end of the world. It's not. Getting into treatment is the beginning of life getting better. Um, it's a nightmare living with it. It's your literal nightmares become reality. Like, and you know, you're gonna you are gonna get periods where things aren't working, and where things aren't gonna work quite the way you want it to, or you're gonna get breakthrough due to, whatever your triggers are. Don't give up. Don't just stop taking your meds. Persist, persist, persist. It will get better.
What an incredible note to leave us on. Now, Fox, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us. It's been wonderful hearing your story, and we look forward to meeting with you again
Yeah.
and seeing more of your artwork and
I
seeing what
got the
you've
new
worked on
wood
since.
burner, so
Oh, nice.
I forgot to mention a big support,
Oh, yeah.
and a very big. This person is monumental in my recovery. My brother. My brother is my inspiration. My brother is my hero. I worship the ground he freaking walks on. Emre Emery's journey through his life is what inspired me in a lot of ways. His whole demeanor, his chill, his ultimate overall positive chill was my inspiration for what I molded myself into when I came into sobriety. Changing my name, that was inspired partly by him. Because that let him let go of his past. He is the the coolest, most understanding brother ever. I mean, alternative, right? Like, I do Renaissance reenactment. I do D&D, like all the nerdy stuff, and he got me a Viking sword for my birthday. And recently, for my birthday, he got me the most extensive, detailed, like, it is going to take my art to a whole new level. He The amount of detail drawing I can go into is going to blow what I can do out of the water. I will be emailing you other pictures, by the way.
Thank you.
Wait till you see. Mom has all my best work. Diane, her best friend, also has all my best work. Um, they're my best customers. But I've got photos from them I can email you.
Great.
My brother has been a big support, and he's always cheering me on. I got a couple friends, Mako, Raven, um, some, I can't name them for obvious reasons, but I got AA friends that are a big support, and without these people, my life would not be getting better.